These videos are made possible with the help of those that support me on Patreon, so thank you guys for your constant support, and if you want to support me, you can click on the link on your screen right now, or click the link in the description below. Thanks a lot. Hello everybody, my name is Tyler Valle, and today I want to talk to you guys about the games industry, and I want to ask you guys a question. Do we really want games to grow up, and are they growing up? For the last several years, we've been hearing from many critics that video games need to grow up. And as the medium has finally begun to really evolve, developers are starting to touch on more serious issues. Whether it's the military-industrial complex, the horrors of war, and how detached from reality you have to be to survive them, a teen girl's journey to find herself and discover love, video games seem to be attempting to make these pushes to prove it can stand on its own with any other art form. The most recent example of this is the new entry in the Deus Ex franchise, titled Deus Ex: Mankind Divided, wherein the developers will attempt to tackle the issues of discrimination and segregation. One would think that this would make these critics happy, right? Wrong! Because after it came out that Deus Ex: Mankind Divided was using the term mechanical apartheid as a tagline, the internet threw a fit, claiming that the developers were racist and insensitive for using it. The backlash became so severe that the lead game developer, Guise, I'm sorry if I mispronounced his name, finally had enough and posted his furious explanation on the Kotaku in Action subreddit. Mr. Matuba, pictured here on the left with fellow developer Christopher Allen, happens to be a black developer, not that that should matter, and has been shamed for wanting to tell a story about prejudice, hatred, discrimination, and segregation, just because he was presumed to be white by ideology-driven sociopaths who attacked him relentlessly. This did not end with Mr. Matuba either. Elias Tofexis, I'm so sorry if I mispronounced your name, the voice of the game's protagonist, spoke out on Twitter saying, "How dare video games attempt to explore serious social and political issues? Stupid, totally white game devs." More developers are going to come out against these perpetually offended keyboard warriors who attempt to shame and bully creators into compliance. And you know what? In fact, it's already begun. Just over a week ago, Jason Martin, a developer working on Doom, posted this message to his personal Facebook before having to backpedal heavily after people attempted to have him fired simply for laughing at the stupid, and that's what it was, stupid, criticism coming from Feminist Frequency about the game Doom. When a person isn't even allowed to mock the criticism he gets on his own personal Facebook, there's a major problem. What I find even more curious is the utter silence that comes from journalists on this issue. You think an attack on the livelihood of developers for disagreeing with the same narrative that was attempting to poison gaming in the 90s would be a hell of a story. Instead, the Deus Ex developer went to a subreddit that is attached to the Gamergate consumer revolt. In my opinion, this is a major failure on the games press, and it just shows that Gamergate is just continuing to pick up traction. These are truly interesting times that we're living in. And before I move on to my final point, I'd like to ask all the people who are listening to this and all the readers who are going to read the article that accompanies this on the site, and anyone who's involved in the gaming community, don't do what former escapist content creator Bob Chipman did a few days ago. Less than a day after the Charleston shooting in South Carolina, Bob thought it would be a good idea to make this series of tweets about the subject, attempting to use the deaths of 9 people to attempt to shame the Deus Ex developers' use of the term apartheid. Now, he did attempt to backpedal after he was called out for this terrible behavior, but in my opinion, it was nothing more than an attempt to save face. So please, from me personally and everybody at GamesNosh, don't use the deaths of real people in your Twitter argument about video games. The fact that I even have to say that just shows how shameless and infinitely cruel some people can be. Finally, the reason why I made this video and I wrote the article to accompany it was because I truly believe gaming is growing and evolving, and with the approach of difficult issues such as rape, murder, and racism, they shouldn't be handled with kids' gloves. These are adult issues for adult audiences. One must remember that these are the people who stood behind Gone Home, a game about an angsty teen's love life, or Life is Strange, a game about 2 teenagers. One of them looked like she walked right out of a punk rock concert 20 years ago and has a personality to match. This leads me to wonder, do these critics really want gaming to grow to adulthood, or just move from childhood to those pesky teen years attempting to rebel against the system that made them? I mean, we just saw developers try that when they lashed out against the gaming community over the last couple days, and it didn't go over so well. If anything needs to grow up, it's definitely not the games anymore. My name is Tyler Valle, and you guys have a great day. Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tyler Valle. This is the part 2 rant of this video. This was originally supposed to be 2 videos, but I decided instead that I was going to make it 1 with the added intermission, thanks to the suggestion of Mr. Guise, I think is his name. I'm sorry if I mispronounced it. And I had to re-record this entire part. I didn't really want to do 2 videos anyway, especially when they're kind of on the shorter side. I felt like I might be double dipping, and I'd feel a little bit like a whore. So let's just get right into it. This past E3 was filled to the brim with awesome looking games. The biggest announcements, in my opinion, they came during the Sony conference. I mean, really, who thought we would see The Last Guardian and Shenmue 3? And even with those announcements, it doesn't mean that Sony won, it just meant that they had the best conference. However, games are not really what I want to talk about today, or not entirely. Instead, I want to talk about another manufactured controversy, because that's all they ever are anymore, is manufactured controversies. I mean, we're never really offended, there's never really a problem, so we have to create one. This is a manufactured controversy created by clickbait-loving, shameless journalists who care more about the zeros on their paycheck than actually doing a good job. I'm talking about the series of articles that have come out about the new wave of female characters in video games. Now, if you've been playing video games for more than the last 6 months, you may not even notice that this was anything new. However, these hacks are trying to push the stupid notion that women in gaming is a new and revolutionary thing. You saw it with the idiots at the Bethesda conference who cheered when Bethesda told you that you could play as a male or a female character. I mean, hell, let's just go back to 2002 when Morrowind came out and say this. When Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, Fallout 3, and New Vegas, you could choose between a male and a female character. So it's safe to say, and safe to go out on a limb, that you could play as a female character in Fallout 4 and in every other Bethesda game that comes after, but don't tell these people that because they don't really give a shit. Female characters in video games go all the way back to the Super Nintendo, if not farther. And again, it's not like these people would even know that. This in particular really has upset me ever since media critic Anita Sarkeesian latched herself onto video games by taking video game heroines, removing everything that makes them, well, them, and then slamming them into a trope slot like a square peg into a round hole, just bashing away until something gives on either end. For me, strong female characters go all the way back to Super Mario Bros. 2 when I could play as Peach, and with games like Chrono Trigger or the Final Fantasy series, they're filled to the brim with strong female characters. Samus Aran and Lara Croft are two of the most iconic characters in video games, period. And hell, I think I spent more time playing Perfect Dark on the Nintendo 64 than I ever did playing GoldenEye. Female characters have always been a part of gaming, and pretending that this is a new thing is not only an insult to our intelligence, but it's an insult to the creators who created these great female characters for nearly 4 decades. The worst part of this issue is that the perceived leaders of this whole move for change still see E3 as a loss due to the fact that only 9% of the games that were shown off at E3 have a sole female protagonist, while 32% have a sole male protagonist. Once again, this is a complete farce due to the fact that they all but ignore the fact that 46%, or nearly half of all games that were shown at E3, give you the option of playing as a male or a female character. But that's not good enough. And you know what? I've had enough. I'll always agree that the industry has its problems and it needs people to call them out. But the industry and consumers deserve someone better than a group of perpetually offended children who are going to waste our time by crying about how violent Doom is or how Dishonored 2 shouldn't have Corvo return as a playable character. And while I think it took a while, the industry is slowly starting to realize just that. If you want to play their game, you're going to lose, because even if you try to do what they want, they're still not going to be happy. For years, characters like Samus, Peach, Bayonetta, Lara Croft, Tifa, Heather Mason, and many, many, many more of these strong, independent female characters have been cheered and paraded and loved by gamers. This fact is being ignored despite a hashtag. It's demeaning to the gaming community, and if you really want to say that games that have been in development for 2+ years and cost hundreds of millions of dollars have been created despite a Gamergate hashtag, you are a moron. And you know what, if you really want to say that this is meant to spite the hashtag, creating diverse characters, diverse games, I think Gamergate would tell you, yes, please, spite us more. We want more diversity, as long as the game is built around that diversity, and you don't try to shove the diversity in there to try to reach a quota to make people happy on places like Tumblr. Even gamers who are loyal to series with female leads can't win against this anti-gamer narrative that's being pushed. With the announcement that the new Metroid Prime game lacks Samus Aran as the lead character, furious fans took to the internet to try to get the game cancelled. And while I think that may be going a little bit too far, it should go to show that these people are pissed because they have been wanting a game with Samus for years. And now they're being told that they have to wait until Nintendo's next console. That's what they say. Metroid Prime's producer said the next console before we see a good Metroid Prime game, an honest Metroid Prime game, a real Metroid Prime game. These are fans that are pissed off about a female lead character being removed from a franchise. But instead of journalists backing them, you know what the journalists are calling them? Entitled. In any way, these journalists who are supposed to be, working for the gamer, hate you. They hate your guts. They can't stand you. They'll continue to mock you because they think you're a monster. They think you're a subhuman. You're lesser than them. In closing, the women in video games have been here for decades, and if this really does seem new to you, perhaps you should actually try to get to know the hobby you spend all your time bashing so hard. Or you can continue to push your hate-filled, brainless, ignorant bullshit until your house of cards finally collapses. And with gamers becoming more and more fed up with poor writers, and even worse, the lack of integrity of said writers, we are already starting to see that towers start to tip. No wonder Total Biscuit is becoming so popular. Just food for thought. My name is Tyler Valle, and you guys have a great day.